Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born on October 2, 1869, the youngest of 4 children, in the town of Porbandar in the country of India. This was his first home. He was born in a time when India was an official colony of Great Britain. This meant that Great Britain ruled India. All of the laws were British laws, and a British viceroy acted as the president of the country. Gandhi was born into an upper-middle-class family. His father, Karamchand, was the Diwan, or Prime Minister of Porbandar, as his grandfather before him had been. This was a position that was passed from father to son. His father was a loving, forgiving man and also a strict vegetarian. His mother, Putliba, was a highly religious person of the Hindu persuasion. She attended temple every day. She was a peaceful woman who also practiced vegetarianism and often went on starvation strikes as a form of nonviolent protest. Gandhi was a bright child but didn't do particularly well in school. He once said, "It was with particular difficulty that I got through my multiplication tables. The fact that I recollect nothing more of those days than having learnt along with other boys to call our teacher all sorts of names would strongly suggest my intellect was sluggish." By the time he was 13 years old, he was attending Alfred High School and was ready to be married. His parents had arranged a marriage for him at birth, as was customary of Hindu beliefs of the time. The young lady he married was also 13 years old and was named Kasturba. Gandhi was a controlling husband at first, always wanting to know where his wife was going and when she would be back. This would change as their lives and marriage progressed. He wondered what else the world had to hold for him than what his parents showed him. He wondered what things were outside the world of vegetarianism and religion. He briefly experimented with eating meat when one of his friends convinced him that it would make him strong like the British. He decided he didn't like eating meat and confessed his sin to his father. His father received his confession with love and understanding, not violence or anger. He also stole money from one of his servants to buy cigarettes and stole gold from his brother. These things he also confessed and found the same gentle manner in his father that he had before. Gandhi admired his father for his compassion and wanted to be like him in many ways. Gandhi's father fell ill when Gandhi was just 16. It was Gandhi's job to watch his father while sleeping to make sure he didn't have any trouble. Gandhi grew tired of watching his father sleep and snuck upstairs to be with his wife. It was during one of these moments that Gandhi's father died. A few weeks later, his pregnant wife lost their child. Gandhi always felt ashamed and responsible for abandoning his father at this time, and that the death of his first child was punishment for it.
The death of his father affected Gandhi deeply. He himself wanted to follow in the footsteps of his father and grandfather and become a leader of his people. So he decided that he would go to law school in Great Britain. This trip would require him to leave his wife for 3 years. In August of 1888, he left Bombay to board a ship bound for Britain. It was during his years in law school that he began reading different religious books. He began discovering the person within himself. His thoughts began to shape a view of the world in which all people were equal and free, a world united in peace, love, and truth.
When Gandhi first arrived in Great Britain, he tried to fit in by wearing proper suits and speaking English, but he always preserved some of his own culture beneath his shiny new clothes. He became a member of the Vegetarian Society of Great Britain and wrote for the Vegetarian Society Journal. His new interest in different religions and culture systems caused him to relinquish his strong devotion to Hindu beliefs and accept that he was a member of no particular religion. Gandhi graduated law school with more knowledge of the world and how it worked than he did about law. In 1891, he moved back to his hometown only to discover that his mother had died only a few weeks before his arrival home. He tried to practice law in India, but found it difficult to get ahead there. His first son was born in October of 1892. Feeling that he couldn't succeed in India, he took a case in Johannesburg, South Africa. The new ideas Gandhi formed in Great Britain began to solidify in South Africa as Gandhi went through several eye-opening experiences. Upon his arrival in Durban, South Africa, he was given a first-class ticket on the train to go to his first case in Pretoria. Once he was seated on the train, he was asked by the conductor to move into a baggage car to ride. He was physically forced out of first class because he was an Indian. In the eyes of the South Africans, Indians were a lower class of people. He was placed in a cold room overnight for his refusal to move, and his luggage was locked up. In his autobiography, years later, he recalled the incident, saying, "The hardship to which I was subjected was superficial, only a symptom of the deep disease of color prejudice." Gandhi quickly realized that Indians in South Africa were being oppressed and treated unfairly. There were over 90,000 Indians in South Africa at the time, all of which had little or no rights. It didn't take long for him to become outraged over Indian conditions in South Africa, and he soon began fighting for their rights. He became a leader of the South African Indian community and encouraged freedom and equality for all. This was the beginning of South Africa's Indians battling for their rights and equality. Gandhi directed the Indians to protest in a non-violent manner, to get their point across with protests and rallies, not attacks and bombings. In doing so, he developed a full belief that non-violent protest was the only way to achieve peace. In an effort to make a non-violent statement, he organized petitions for Indian rights and newspaper publicity against anti-Indian laws. He distributed pamphlets and brochures across South Africa, Great Britain, and India. He was instrumental in setting up the Natal Indian Congress. They peacefully protested for Indian rights in South Africa. Gandhi wished to return to his home for a while and be with his wife, Kasturba, and be with the Indian people, helping them to win freedom from repression and racism.
By the time Gandhi arrived back in India, he was excited to begin leading his own people in peaceful progress. He wanted to liberate India from Britain and gain independence for all his people.
He immediately began to publicize Indian injustices and spread the news of self-empowerment and self-reliance. While in India for 6 months, he created a flurry of Indian support. He soon took his wife and 2 sons aboard a steamer for South Africa. When this steamer arrived, the Indians on board were not allowed to exit onto shore. They were forced to stay on board for weeks. Gandhi commented on the people he was being held by, saying, "I have no anger against them. I'm only sorry for their ignorance and narrowness." When Gandhi finally was allowed on shore, he was attacked by a mob of South Africans that didn't want him or Indians in general to come into their country. The angry mob chanted to hang him from a sour apple tree. Gandhi did not let the incident bring him down. He used the event as a sort of bargaining tool with the Natal Congress to get a law passed that allowed for equal voting rights for all British citizens, and this included the Indians. This had been one of Gandhi's main goals all along. Gandhi began to see that he must act as an individual who was reliant only upon himself. His example would become the standard for many Indians. In 1889, a war broke out in South Africa between Boer settlers and Great Britain. This war obligated all British citizens to help in the war effort. This included the Indians of the British Empire. Gandhi despised war and was unwilling to serve as a soldier. Instead, he joined a special unit, a peaceful group of Indian men called the Indian Ambulance Corps. This was a dedicated group of men who carried wounded soldiers to safety. Gandhi was later awarded a medal for his service in the war. In 1903, Gandhi started a South African magazine for Indians called Indian Opinion. This paper was written in English and in 3 Indian languages,